Well, happy Sunday to you. Welcome into SportsWrap. Nice to have you with us. We got a lot to do tonight once again. Obviously, we've got our national championship game set up in college football. We know who's playing in that game, but it was a wild game last night out in Pasadena. That Rose Bowl game, Ohio State, Utah, wow. I mean, you wanted scoring, you got it. Jackson Smith and Jigba was incredible. Caught over 300 yards passing, 5 touchdowns. I mean, my goodness, quite a performance. And Ohio State gets the win. It was a bounce back win for Ohio State, who, lost that game to Michigan in such, humiliating fashion. I mean, the Wolverines took them to the woodshed. And it felt like initially that they didn't have the juice in the beginning of that game. And you wondered how much of the hangover from that Michigan game impacted Ohio State. But look, at the end of the day, Ohio State is a very good football team, a very good football team. And you see the type of talent that they have. It was a really wild game. We're also going to talk about the Matt Corral situation in that Baylor Ole Miss game, because look, I think that as a fan of college athletics, part of that is understanding that these student athletes, when they have an opportunity to go make real money at the professional level, I think you have to at least understand and appreciate the fact that if they're going to sit out one of these bowl games, that they're doing it, it's a business move, right? Like this isn't an indictment on the team. It's not an indictment on the program. It's not an indictment on the fan base. It's a business decision. And I think in Matt Corral's case last night, where this guy has a future in the NFL, is he a top round pick? No, he is not. Is he a first round pick? Second round pick? Probably not. But at the same time, he's going to play in the league. And now you've got an ankle injury, a foot injury, a leg injury, whatever it is. And now that is going to impact his draft stock and how teams look at him and how they evaluate him and whether or not they can evaluate him because of the injury. So, I think that there's a fine line there that we need to walk in terms of being a fan of a team, being a fan of a program, but understanding that if you've got a really good player on your team, look at East Lansing with Kenneth Walker. I didn't hear a lot of Spartan fans that were grumbling that Kenneth Walker wasn't playing, because Kenneth Walker is sitting out as a business decision, because he's probably going to be the first running back taken in the NFL draft. And so you don't want to jeopardize your future. So that's an interesting thing that we have to contend with. And speaking of interesting, you want to see one of the most unbelievable exits to a career in any line of work. I want you to go on Twitter, and we'll talk about it, so hang with us. But I want you to go on Twitter, and I want you to search Antonio Brown, or wherever. Google Antonio. You'll see the videos. Antonio Brown just he put an end to his professional career in the NFL today. We'll talk about it. One of the most amazing exits ever. Also, we're going to give you an update on what's going on in Seattle. Lions taking on the Seahawks. It's halftime in Seattle, and the Lions are getting blown out. We'll talk about that. The other thing I want to talk about too today is sports has a way sometimes of, it's a lot of X's and O's. It's a lot of, silly stuff in between the lines. But sometimes sports can bring out another element of who we are as people. And there is no better example of that than what happened in the NHL over the last couple of days. We'll talk about it. Unbelievable story. A life was saved. All thanks to a fan. And now this person who works for an NHL franchise, who works for a team, is going to be able to go home to his family every day based on something that a fan saw at a game. We'll talk about it. Unbelievable, unbelievable story. And we had talked about it a couple of weeks ago before Christmas and before our break. The Lions had an uphill climb here with the last couple of games on their slate. Had a decent game against Atlanta, couldn't get the dub. They got Seattle today. They're getting housed. And then you got Green Bay on the back end of all of this. Like the last 3 games here, they won 2 of the last 3, and then now they're on this 2-game slide and certainly on their way to what appears to be a 3-game slide to end the season. And we'll have plenty of time to talk about what this means and where you expect this team to be going in the future. But they have showed that they've been scrappy. Today, they're just getting the doors blown off. So we'll talk all about that here on SportsWrap.
It's time for Sports Wrap on 760 WJR.
All right, this is the wrap on 760 WJR.
To a car phone we go. Dave, thanks for hanging on. You're on 760.
Gentlemen, and Steve and Dan, you got the chemistry. It's cooking.
Presented by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel Sports app today. FanDuel, more ways to win.
Are you calling us from your office?
I'm doing SportsCenter tonight with
Are you really?
Dan Patrick. Yes.
I'm very impressed. By the way, give Dan our best. He's a good man. And
I will. Hey, Dan. Chuck Swirsky says hi. This is the best sports wrap has ever been, in my opinion.
Now, here's your host, Chris Renwick.
Oh, happy Sunday to you. Good to have you with us here on Sports Wrap this evening. Look, we got a lot to do tonight. I mean, a lot. We're going to talk college football. We're going to talk Matt Corral and that whole situation last night in that game against Baylor, Ole Miss. You have to understand when it comes to college athletes and their ability to make real money into the future, in the future at the professional ranks, you got to understand that when kids sit out of these bowl games, when they sit out, it's a business decision 9 times out of 10. And what happened to Matt Corral last night and how that impacts his ability to be an earner at the NFL level in the future is something that cannot be overlooked. So we're going to talk about it. We're also going to talk about the NHL. No, we're not going to break down we're not going to break down the Bruins Wings game tonight. We're not. But what I am going to tell you is that sometimes sports has a way of tapping into a different portion of who we are as people. Like, it's not all silly fun and games and ribbing your rivals. Sometimes it's serious. Sometimes it can save a life. We'll talk about that too. Lions getting their the doors blown off in Seattle as we speak. Just getting ready to get the second half underway. And look, I think that when we autopsy this season, we'll have a better understanding of where this thing is going. I think the way that Dan Campbell has evolved as a play caller over the second half of the season has been encouraging. Still some question marks here and there, but for the most part, he's still learning to be a play caller. Whether or not that persists into the future, we'll see. 31-7 start of the third quarter in Seattle. Lions looking realistically at a 2-13-1 record heading into the last game of the season against Green Bay. In the meantime, I don't know. I understand you got a lot of stuff to do. There's a good possibility that you're not watching football all day Sunday. But if you didn't have an opportunity today to see or at least catch any highlights of the Jets-Bucs game, MetLife Stadium, Jets hosting the Bucs. The Jets were taking it to Tampa Bay. I mean, they really were. Tampa Bay they were looking at a loss against the Jets. But they were able to come back, late drive, Tom Brady, you know the deal. Bucs pull out the win over the Jets. But what was overshadowed by really an incredible comeback win was what happened with one of the best players on the team, one of the most talented receivers on the team. Look, the Jets were up 24-17 at the start of the fourth quarter. Tampa Bay scored 11 points in the fourth quarter. They won 28-24. But what was wild was what turned, I think, what ended up being the last time you'll ever see Antonio Brown on the field. It's the last time you'll ever see Antonio Brown playing football in the NFL. I mean, whatever happened, we don't know yet. We don't really know what happened, but let me paint the picture for you here. Bucs are looking at a look defensively. They're trying to make a stop. They're trying to they got to get off the field. They're trying to get this thing right because they're trailing. Antonio Brown all of a sudden on the sidelines rips off his jersey and his pads, rips off his shirt, throws his gloves, his shirt into the stands, runs across the end zone into the tunnel, waving the peace sign, and is gone. Gone. Antonio Brown literally left the building. Took a police escort to the airport and just dipped. And I mean, look, Antonio Brown has had issues. We know this over the last, I don't know, how many years has it been, Jace? 3-4 years?
Yeah.
It just seems like it's a never-ending. It's like it's one of those spinning doors with this guy. There's always something. Even going back to his last year in Pittsburgh, right? Posting on social media in the locker room, all that nonsense. So there has been issues with Antonio Brown over the course of his career, especially over the last few years. But whatever happened today, we don't really know. All we saw in video from Fox, in video from people in the stands, was that Antonio Brown just ripped off his pads. Mike Evans, the other receiver, goes over to try to talk to him. Antonio Brown is trying to take off his pads, and Mike Evans keeps like throwing his hands on his shoulders to try to keep his pads on. And then the next thing you know, Mike Evans it looks like he just kind of gives up, throws his hands up, walks away, and then Antonio Brown becomes a streaker for all intents and purposes and dips. I mean, really, it was one of the most wild scenes I have seen in football. Just at one point, the best receiver in the league, a superstar in the league, just leave. And look here, Bruce Arians after the game, he had no interest in addressing it, but he did have this to say about Antonio Brown's status as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer.
He is no longer a Buck. All right, that's the end of the story. Let's talk about the guys that went out there and won the game.
Oh, all right. That's it. He's done. He's not with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers anymore. And quite frankly, the only reason he was a Buck was because Tom Brady continued to stick his neck out for him, continued to try to get him right so that they could win another Super Bowl here. They won it last year, but they're trying to get him right. And this year, again, the fake COVID card, suspended 3 games. That guy, he was staying at Tom Brady's house after the whole thing that unfolded with the Raiders and his girlfriend and the whole thing. I mean, look, something isn't right with Antonio Brown. And I don't know if it's somebody needs to, if he needs to seek medical attention, if this is I don't know that we're really going to get the full story. But whatever happened with Antonio Brown, something went wrong.
Has Antonio Brown made enough money in his career? Because I don't know what line of work he'd be suited for. Now, the only time I think we could see him on the field again is if the XFL does come back.
Sure.
Possibly. But other than that, the NFL career is definitely over for him. And he exited how we all want to exit a job we don't like.
Sure. Just
Yeah.
like deuces. I'm out. I mean, I don't know that I would take my shirt off necessarily, but that's
No,
personal
especially in
preference, I
New
suppose.
York in the middle of or the beginning of January.
Yeah, it doesn't seem great. But geez, I don't know. I mean, look, this guy something. I guess at first blush, you kind of like, I feel bad for Antonio Brown. Like something is not right here. He's not mentally. He's not right. Now, that's just at first blush. Unless something happened on the sideline that we don't know about yet, and I emphasize yet. I don't know that we're going to get the full story, but I think we're going to start hearing things, an Adam Schefter tweet from sources, right? So no, I don't know what other line of, I don't know what else Antonio Brown is going to do. I don't. I hope he's managed his estate properly, because I don't know. I really don't. But it was a wild scene. It was a wild scene. And in a day when Tampa Bay came back and won the game in comeback fashion, last a couple of seconds in the game, they win it. It was completely overshadowed by what happened with Antonio Brown. Crazy day. All right, I'll tell you what, we'll take a break, come back on the other side, give you an update on what's going on out in Seattle. Lions getting throttled right now. And we'll get you caught up on other scores around the NFL. I have a question about college athletes. We talked a little bit about it to start the show, but college athletes who sit out of bowl games. Jason, I want to get your input on this too, get your thoughts on, if you want to weigh in, 800-859-0957. Are you okay with athletes that are going to play in the NFL? Are you okay with them sitting out bowl games? We'll talk about it next.
I called my HR department and said, hey, do you have like a PowerPoint or anything like that gives me a list of things that one would have to do to retire? And their response was, no, we don't have that. And I'm like, well, why not? It would have made it a whole lot easier to see a list of things that you have to do.
All right, so we'll
and
give
maybe
you
some
guys an
time
update
associated with
here
that.
on.
Are you thinking about starting your
Lions trail by 31 points? It's 38-7 with 13 minutes to go in the third quarter. Like, this thing is getting out of hand. And again, I think that I've told you multiple times that this season is not about wins and losses. It's how they play these football games. Today has been ugly. Jared Goff out again. He's got an injury. So you got Tim Boyle again. And the stat line is not impressive. 8 for 16 and no touchdowns. He's got the pick, 89 yards. It's just, it's a position that they're going to have to address. It just is. The backup quarterback position, if you are committed to Jared Goff for the long haul, then it's just something that you're going to have to address. You got to find somebody with at least, a Brian Hoyer, somebody like that has some at least extensive playing experience. We just don't have that right now. And look, this is just one of the many positions that they're going to have to try to upgrade this offseason. But, it looks like you're going to have a couple of premium draft picks to try to do it. So we'll talk about that too.
But some things haven't changed. Stomach cancer is still a leading cause of cancer death worldwide. More than 1 million people will be diagnosed this year alone, and it's vital to know your risks and learn ways to prevent it. It's also critical for cancer patients to protect themselves from all viruses. No Stomach for Cancer encourages you to listen to medical experts to understand your risks. Find out more about COVID-19 at cancer.gov and learn more about your risks for stomach cancer at nostomachforcancer.org.
Now back to more Sports Wrap. Presented by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel Sports app today. FanDuel, more ways to win. Here's Chris Renwick.
If you want to join the show, you can do it via our stream as well. We're live streaming on our Facebook and our YouTube page, WJR Radio. So if you want to participate in the show that way, you're more than welcome. Sometimes in the break, I try to we talk about different things, whatever. And I was just talking about the need for an upgrade at the backup quarterback spot here with this team, with this Lions team. Like, if you're committed to Jared Goff long term, and Jared Goff has at least shown at times he can be an average or above average quarterback. And he just threw an absolute dime to Kaderil Hodge. That was I think they spotted him down at about the 2-yard line, but a leaping grab. At first blush, you thought maybe he got in, but and now Seattle making a goal line stand at the 2-yard line. Jamal Williams gets absolutely popped behind the line of scrimmage at about the 3-yard line. That's a tough sledding here for this team as they got a 3rd and goal at about the 3. They trail it 38-13. In the meantime, one of the interesting things about college football and the way that we, as fans, look at the players who sit out of games, that opt out of bowl games. You don't see it very often in the playoff. You don't see it very often in a championship game, or really even in a New Year's 6 day type of bowl, like the big bowls. But you do see it, and we've seen it a lot, even this year. Like particularly with, Kenneth Walker, Kenny Pickett in that Peach Bowl. Two games, or 2 guys in that game that were, those are big name players. Those are going to be the. You figure that Kenny Pickett is very well going to be the first quarterback off the board. And Ken Walker probably is going to be the first running back off the board. So you understand why those guys opt out. At least I do. Because you are going to be the premier pick at your position. Or if you're a top 10 pick, or if you're a top 15, 20 pick, if you're a first round pick, if that's where your projection is, why would you play in a bowl game? Why? It is a business decision. It is not an indictment against your team, your coaching staff, your teammates, the program, the fan base. It's none of those things. It is purely a business decision. And I think that last night, when you look at what happened in that Sugar Bowl, Baylor, Ole Miss, the Bears beat the Rebels 21-7. And, Matt Corral is a guy, is he the best quarterback? No. Has he been a really important piece to that Rebs offense? Sure has. And they asked him before the game, they said, why aren't you opting out? You're gonna be drafted. You're gonna be a guy that's going to play in the NFL. Or at least you're gonna have a contract. You're gonna be a backup, whatever it is. You're gonna be in the NFL. Why would you come back and play this game? Why would you play a meaningless, quote unquote, game? And Matt Corral's like, look, I wouldn't be where I am without my teammates. I'm not going to leave them high and dry. It's important for me to play this game with my guys. And that's okay too. That's an okay mindset to have too. To want to go out, want to play with your guys. Look, it's a freak injury, got rolled up on his right leg, and it happens. But Matt Corral's hurt now and came out of the locker room in crutches, pads off in that game. And I think it begs the question, are you okay if somebody on your team decides, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm out. I didn't, and to a lot of the credit for Spartan fans, they weren't upset that Kenneth Walker didn't play in that game. They get it. You get it. It's a business decision. Kenneth Walker is the best running back in America. He's going to be the first running back off the board. You don't mess with that. I get it. I understand taking out an insurance policy on yourself if you want to come back for another season, like somebody like Aiden Hutchinson did. Right? Like Aiden Hutchinson was going to be a premier pick last year. You take out the insurance policy, and if anything happens, you're at least going to get some money. But if you want to go early, I get it. You go get paid. You're an amateur athlete. You're a college student. If your goal is to get to the professional level, I get it. I understand the mindset. It's a business decision. But for somebody like Matt Corral, your heart just breaks for the kid. It's absolutely awful. I mean, Jason, I don't know how you feel about this. I tend to believe, and look, this is from a fan perspective, right? Like, for me, I'm not interested in the Duke Mayo Bowl. You know what I mean? Like, that's not interesting to me. I don't really care if my team even plays in that. Generally, you're going to get a lower rung team that maybe those players are interested, and you go and you travel and you get some perks and you get some swag, whatever it is, and you have a nice time. But when it comes to these bigger schools, when it comes to schools like Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State, where your goal every year is to trying to get to the playoff. Now, for me, I told you yesterday, the Rose Bowl is important to me. The Rose Bowl has significance. There's value there. I care less about Rose Bowls Sugar Bowls and Fiesta Bowls and Peach Bowls and all those things. Good premium bowls, but I care less about those things. But you want to try to get to the playoff. I don't begrudge any player for saying, nope, I'm out. Because I'm Dax Hill and I'm going to be picked in the first round of the draft. Or I'm Aiden Hutchinson and I'm going to be a top 3 player taken, so I'm sitting out. You'll love it when they play. You may not be surprised when Matt Corral says, look, I'm going to play. Of course I'm going to play. These are my teammates. These are my guys. You may not be surprised by that, and that's okay. But it should also be okay for somebody to sit out, for somebody to opt out, to protect their ability to earn big money in the NFL. I have no problem with that. What do you think?
No problem whatsoever. If it's the college football playoff and you're a fan of that team and that player decides to opt out, sure. You kind of you think back to what happened to Clinton Portis. That was in the national championship game when he got hurt. He went on to have a pretty good career, but right now, like you said, I'm not interested. I'm not even interested in my team going to the Duke Mayo Bowl, let alone having a player sit out. The Peach Bowl, that was a December 30th game, didn't mean much for him to sit out. That's perfectly fine, because even if I'm a Spartans fan and the Spartans did lose that game, still not a big deal to me.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about it yesterday, and we don't need to rehash it, but there are positive ramifications to winning these bigger bowls, right? Like, there's a recruiting aspect that's important. Right. But the fact that you don't have your guy and you still win, that's a positive. But if you don't have your guy, it's okay. From a fan perspective, it has to be okay. You have to understand that these guys, realistically, are going to have a chance to play in the NFL. What happens with Matt Corral now? I don't know. I don't know if it's a situation where they're unable to really evaluate him, how bad the extent of the injury is, if he's going to be able to work out at a pro day. Like, there are so many ramifications of somebody like Matt Corral getting hurt. And again, is he the first player off the board? No. Is he the first player at his position off the board? Probably not. But geez, you feel for the guy when that situation happens. Baylor goes on to win the game, but the story there is Matt Corral getting hurt, and it's just it's a shame. Is really what it is, and he's trying to be out there for his teammates, and he gets hurt. Real sad situation. All right, we'll get you updated on what's going on in this Lion game, get you caught up on scores around the NFL. I also want to talk about this situation in the NHL. Just an incredible, incredible story. We'll get to some of your comments also on the other side of the break. Chris Renwick in this evening. Sports Wrap rolling on WJR. By the way, don't forget Gridiron Wrap coming your way at 7:05 tonight here on WJR. So you're not going to want to miss that either. All right, more on the other side next here on WJR.
I called my HR department and said, hey, do you have like a PowerPoint or something like
Positive,
that? They gave
if
me
you
a
do want
list
to take
of
a call.
things that one would have to do.
Okay, what's he want to talk
and their
about?
response was, no, we don't have that.
Let me check.
I'm like, well, why not? It would have made it a whole lot easier to see a list of things that you have to do.
Clay, the
maybe some
Rose Bowl
time
seems to be a
associated with it.
backup plan
Are you
nowadays. The
thinking
big
about
deal's making
starting
the top
your
four and
journey
winning
into
a national
retirement, but you
championship.
don't know where to start?
It is.
Go to
Yeah. The goal is the Final Four. That's the top four.
and
That's where you
download
want
your copy of the retirement plan
and
checklist.
I don't know. Look, at
No
32
cost,
team
no
playoff,
obligation. In just a few minutes,
that
you'll
would
have a list of
be
consent.
bonkers. For me, am a strong advocate for a 16-team playoff. I think that you want the excitement. Look, I love college basketball, and in terms of an event in totality, there isn't much better than March Madness. But if you have a 16-team playoff, could you imagine? You essentially have all 5 conference winners, and then you've got 11 at large. I mean, look at Cincinnati. Was Cincinnati deserving to be there in hindsight? I mean, they played Alabama better than Michigan played Georgia. I mean, you got to give them a little bit of props. Notre Dame ended up, wet in the bed towards the end of that game and lost to Okie State. How about Okie State? How about Houston? How about Ohio State? How about Michigan State? Like, just because you've got teams that don't make the playoff doesn't mean that they're not really good teams. Doesn't mean that they can't add value. And I agree. I think that if you have so you have the break from championship weekend until the bowl start and playoff start. And, in a lot of those situations, the time frame can be really long, especially if you're playing closer to New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. And so, you take away some of that time. Kids are still able to focus on finals and schoolwork, but then, I mean, you could essentially fit in a couple of more games, and everybody, this is a win-win situation. You want to talk about viewership? You want to talk about eyes on the tube? They'll be there for a 16-team playoff. 32, I think, is a little much, even for me, Clay. And I'm all about expansion, believe me. But I would love to see expansion. I'd love to see this thing go higher than 4. And I think it is. I think 8 is the next logical destination. That's your 5 conference championships and 3 at-large bids. I can be okay with that. I can see it. I get why that's appealing. But geez, we need expansion. We just do.
Greg's got a comment about the players opting out of bowl games, stuff like that.
All right. Hey, Jace, I can't hear the station. I don't know if that's on your end or not.
And I'm like, well, why not? You know, it would have made it a whole lot easier to see a list of things that you have to do and maybe some time associated with that.
Are you thinking about starting your journey into retirement, but you don't know where to start? Go to ofgwealth.com/checklist and download your copy of the Retirement Plan Checklist. No cost, no obligation. In just a few minutes, you'll have a list to consider as you prepare for your retirement life. If you have or will have $500,000 of investable assets, go to ofgwealth.com/checklist for your free copy of Osawala Financial Group's Retirement Plan Checklist. Investment advisory services offered through Barber Financial Group, Inc., DBA Osawala Financial Group, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
Now back to more Sports Wrap. Presented by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel Sports app today. FanDuel, more ways to win. Here's Chris Renwick.
All right, get you caught up on a couple of scores around the NFL at present. The Chargers over the Broncos 34-6. That game happening in L.A. Got about 10 minutes to go in that one. Justin Herbert, 20 for 29, 221 yards, 2 scores in that game. The 49ers lead the Texans 17-7 with about 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter there. Trey Lance in the game, of course, for Jimmy Garoppolo, who's injured, 15 for 21, 220, and 2 touchdowns there. The Cardinals looking for a big win over Jason's Cowboys. They lead it with about 4 minutes to go in the third, 22-7. Jason, what's going on with the Cowboys here? My goodness.
The Giants aren't in town. Washington's not in town. The Saints aren't in town. An actual football team is in town.
I see. All right. Well, Jason is salty. The Saints lead the Panthers 12-10 with about 2 minutes to go in the third quarter. Seahawks all over the Lions with about 7.5 to go in the third quarter, 38-15. Keep you updated on that game. Bills over the Falcons 29-15 earlier. The Bears beat the Giants 29-3. The Bengals beat the Chiefs 34-31, which is a big win for Cincinnati. Jamar Chase, 11 catches, 266 yards. 266 yards, 3 scores for Jamar Chase that day. How about that? That'll work. Titans beat the Dolphins, who I guess if you want to look at the most hot and cold team in the NFL, it would be the Dolphins. They won their first game and then lost 7 in a row and then went on to win 7 in a row, and then they lost their first game today against the Titans since they lost to the Bills back in week 8. That's pretty impressive. And I just lost my page here. Here it is. The Raiders with a big win over the Colts today, 23-20. That game in Indianapolis. Pats over the Jags, 50-10. We talked about Antonio Brown and him literally leaving football today. Bucks beat the Jets 28-24. Eagles over the Washington football team 20-16. And the Rams squeaked by the Ravens today despite Matthew Stafford's he threw for over 300 yards. He had a pretty good day today. 20-19. He got Vikings Packers tonight. 800-859-0957. I understand we have Greg on the line from Shelby Township. What's up, Gregory?
Good evening, Christopher. Mr. Positive's in the house. Feeling pretty doggone good. I'm coming around from that major surgery. Hey, real quick, thank you. You presented a very interesting conundrum. Should college players opt out and to go to the pros? But what happens, I was telling my man Jason, what happens if you have a scholarship? Isn't it analogous to having money in the sense that you're giving a scholarship, that you have a 3 or 4 year ride, that you can get an education, and shouldn't you play to the best of your ability? But yet I can see your point that I've got mega millions waiting for me in the NFL. So why would I want to hurt myself? And whatever happened to Antonio Brown, wow, is that a sad situation? Wow. Brady bends over backwards for him.
Brady bent over backwards. Let him stay at his house, for crying out loud.
Right.
Look, I think until we know more, my stance on Antonio Brown is I feel for the guy. Like something is not okay. Something is not right with Antonio Brown. Now, I feel for him in the sense that like he's said some pretty heinous things. He's done some pretty heinous things. Like he's not a good guy, but something is wrong with the mentals here. Like it just isn't right. Now, until we get more information, that's going to be my stance. In terms of the college thing, first of all, schools are never going to do anything in terms of the scholarship if you've got a game left in your career. Like if you're I'm trying to if you're Kenneth Walker, or maybe you're I'm even a hypothetical where you're a really good player, you could go to the NFL, but you have eligibility at the college level back. Like even if that was the case, schools are not going to pull scholarships. Like they're not going to be like, okay, well, you're going to opt out, then you can't go to class on Monday. Like that would be a terrible precedent, and you would never get recruits. That's number one. But on the other hand, I think that schools, a real conundrum here is that schools should be backing this. Schools are the one that should be okay with this. Programs and coaches should be embracing it, because what that tells you is that if you're good enough to go, we're going to understand that you're going to be able to make big time money at the NFL, and we want to support you in that. That will actually help your recruiting efforts. So it is a conundrum. I see what you're saying, but I think at the end of the day, you got to embrace it. All right, Greg. Appreciate that. I look, I think you're right, but at the same time, I think there's a lot more positive things that can happen if you embrace this thing. And I think most do. Like they get it. I think it's a fan thing for the most part. And that's why I think that when you look at the Matt Corral situation down at Ole Miss, that's where it's really a bummer. Like that's where it's like you feel for the guy, because he has continued to maintain that he's playing in the game, that he wants to play in the game because these are his guys. He wouldn't be where he is at without them. And then he goes and gets injured enough to where can't finish the game, took the pads away, and now they're in a situation where, you don't know how they're going to be able to evaluate him. It's tough. It's really tough. In the meantime, Taylor Decker scores. Lions short on tight ends, Lions short on fullbacks. Taylor Decker, the big man, going up to take that pass from Tim Boyle, and the Lions add 6 pending the extra point. So Taylor Decker gets into the end zone today. All right, we'll take a quick break, come back on the other side. We'll talk about this thing in the NHL. We'll bring in our guy, Sean Belegian. He's got Gridiron Wrap coming your way next here on WJR at 7:05. So don't go anywhere. Lots to do here tonight still as Sports Wrap continues. Look, I'm sure you've heard all about FanDuel Sportsbook by now. I've been telling you about them for a long time. Did you know they're an official sports betting partner of the NFL? That means when you place your bets, you're doing it on a trustworthy app. The NFL doesn't get into business with slouches. And by the way, if you're a fan of the NBA like I am, celebrate the NBA's 75th season on FanDuel Sportsbook, because right now, new customers place your first bet risk-free. And if you don't win, you get up to $1,000 back. And if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, now is the time to give it a shot. Clay, there's no doubt about that.
Easy to use, easy to register, easy to deposit. Now they're accepting Venmo.
Plus, when you win your money, you get paid as little as 2 hours.
Look, there's no better place to bet on the NBA than with FanDuel.
Oh my
Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app, sign up, use my promo code Renwick,
national
championship first bet risk-free up to $1,000.
Wonderful.
And make every moment special this NBA season. Again, that's promo code Renwick.
21 and older and present in Michigan. First online real money wager only. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problems? Call 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help. Introducing thegreatvoice.com. A new podcast website from News Talk 760 WJR with all your favorite WJR content delivered directly to your desktop or mobile device. Plus podcasts you can only find on thegreatvoice.com.
I called my HR department and said, hey, do you have like a PowerPoint or anything like that that gives me a list of things that one would have to do to retire? And their response was, no, we don't have that. And I'm like, well, why not? It would have made it a whole lot easier to see a list of things that you have to do and maybe some time associated with that.
Are you thinking about starting your journey into retirement, but you don't know where to start? Go to ofgwealth.com/checklist and download your copy of the retirement plan checklist. No cost, no obligation. In just a few minutes, you'll have a list to consider as you prepare for your retirement life. If you have or will have $500,000 of investable assets, go to ofgwealth.com/checklist for your free copy of Osawala Financial Group's retirement plan checklist. Investment advisory services offered through Barber Financial Group, Inc., DBA Osawala Financial Group, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
Sleep Solutions Home Medical goes beyond sleep apnea needs. Your Michigan-owned Easy Solutions for wheelchairs, walkers, hospital beds, lift chairs, oxygen, and more. Most covered by insurance or out-of-pocket discounts. Call 877-SLEEP-MI or visit SleepSolutionsInc.com.
On our first date, we had masks on and kept 6 feet apart. Now, we're a lot closer.
Just like Cliff and Deb, thousands of singles over 50 found their perfect match on Silver Singles last year.
I feel like I'm 20 years old again, and I'm pretty sure she feels the same way.
Rediscover the magic of dating with Silver Singles, the exclusive community for singles over 50. Sign up today and receive daily matches you won't want to miss at silversingles.com/radio. silversingles.com/radio.
Gift the best with the best steaks of your life from Omaha Steaks, America's original butcher since 1917. Perfect aged, tender, unforgettable, and guaranteed delicious.
Okay,
to OmahaSteaks.com and enter Sizzle into the search bar and save over 50% when you order the perfect gift package for just $99.99. You'll get 24 entrees plus 4 boneless chicken breasts and 4 boneless pork chops free. Incredible flavor, value, and 100% guarantee. Achieve gifting greatness at OmahaSteaks.com. Keyword
happening in
Sizzle.
Seattle right now. I don't know
Getting
what's
your
going on.
guaranteed maximum refund with TaxSlayer feels like saddling up and chasing down.
Look at that sweet moolah!
That big old cash cow.
Look at all that money!
All right, I got it. It's about
TaxSlayer
49
is free
seconds.
and get your guaranteed maximum refund. TaxSlayer. File fearlessly.
Refinance to today's low mortgage rates, and you could save up to $1,000 a month, plus tens of thousands in long-term savings. It just takes a 10-minute call to American Financing to get started. You'll get a custom loan with incredible savings, no pressure, no upfront fees. Pre-qualify for free at 800-777-8109 or visit AmericanFinancing.net. NMLS 182334, NMLSConsumerAccess.org.
What makes Fast Cash from the Michigan Lottery so thrilling? The progressive jackpot that keeps building with every ticket sold all day long. From the moment you wake up, the jackpot's building. And while you're in the shower, it's still building. Even while you're working, it's still building. Until jackpot, a winner, right on the spot. The fun keeps building with Fast Cash, only from the Michigan Lottery. Knowing your limits is always the best bet.
Now back to more Sports Wrap. Presented by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel Sports app today. FanDuel, more ways to win. Here's Chris Renwick.
I told you earlier, sometimes sports transcend sports. Sometimes it's a lot more than just X's and O's. And in the case of Brian Hamilton, he's an assistant equipment manager with the Vancouver Canucks. They were in Seattle back on October 23rd for the Seattle Kraken's first home game in the NHL. It was then where a fan near the glass noticed that something on Hamilton's neck wasn't right. And she had written on her phone, she typed it in on her phone, big, large, colorful font. And she showed it to him as she tried to get his attention frantically. So finally he looked over, and on her phone it said, "The mole on the back of your neck is cancer." So Hamilton kind of like saw her, went about his day, went home to his wife, said, "Do I have a mole on my neck?" She goes, "Yeah, it looks kind of weird." So then he went to the organization's medical staff. And they said, "All right, well, we can look at it. We're not, we're not somebody that deals with this. We're not, this isn't our focus, but we can look at it." And so finally they had them all biopsied and had most of it taken off. And sure enough, it was a malignant melanoma in phase 2, meaning that the cancer was only on the outer layer of the skin. And so Hamilton, and with the help of the Vancouver Canucks, put out this tweet yesterday. And it said essentially, we're looking for this person. Because Hamilton is like, I got to find this person. She saved my life, literally saved my life. Well, as it so happens, the Canucks were in Seattle to take on the Kraken. And they ended up finding this person, this woman. And in this statement, he said, "Look, I want to meet her. I want to thank her. Nadia Popovici is the hero here." And Red Hamilton got to meet her in person before the game. And leading up, he said, "Look, what do I want to? I want to tell her thank you. First of all, I want her to know that I got to give a message from my mother. The mother said she loves her too, and he said, people need to know that she's a hero." And to top all of this off, this woman is a med student. She wants to be a doctor, so that's how she knew that this thing on his neck was cancerous. And now the Canucks and the Kraken are joining together here. They're going to give her $10,000 to go to med school to help with some of the costs. Sean Belegian, it's one of those stories where you think this is way more than sports. And in a time when everything can be so divisive across the board, this woman saved his life, and he just wanted to thank her. And good on the organizations for getting together and throwing a little coin her way for medical school. I hear it can be pricey.
Oh, it was great to see that whole thing play itself out, Chris. You're absolutely right. And, guys like you and I get so sick of social media. I think a lot of people do. I get so sick of it. And I'm talking even sports stuff, Chris. I mean,
everything.
The past few days between Michigan and Michigan State fans, it's stupid.
What are we doing? What is this?
Stupid.
I don't get it.
I don't get it.
I don't get it.
Hey, you know what I always say, Chris? For me, my go-to line is at least I'm consistent. And I said the exact same thing 6 years ago. There are 121 teams and 13 teams in the Big Ten that would have given anything to be where Michigan was. Like, come on. Like, stop it. This is so stupid. At least we scored. I mean, it's honestly, it's like a playground with 9-year-olds. And I think I'm being disrespectful to 9-year-olds.
Yeah, so, maybe you are.
It really is. It's just so silly.
That's where social media ends up being a cesspool because, first of all, you have to understand if you're playing a better team, you're playing a better team, right? Like it happened to Michigan State in 2015. Alabama was the better football team. You knew it from the opening kick, on whatever that was, New Year's Eve. That first play from scrimmage when Georgia ran for 9 yards, I said, this is going to be a rough night. Like, you just know right away. and that's okay. But you want to win a natty, you want to be there, but the only way you can even put yourself in a position, and in Michigan's case, you got to get through Ohio State, you got to win the Big Ten, and in hindsight, those are really big deals to a program that has been in the dumps for quite a long time.
You and I probably had that conversation over the last 6 years. I can't tell you how many times I said to my friends that are Michigan fans, guys, I get it. You're dreaming of the natty, and Harbaugh's bringing you back to glory. It starts in your division. Take care of business in your division.
Yep.
Go to the Big Ten championship, and then you can talk about those things. It's really not that complicated. I think Bo had it right all those years ago. And I mean, seriously, take care of business in your conference, and everything happens after that. And cross that bridge when you get there. But tip of the cap to Michigan. I don't think they have a darn thing to hang their head about, Chris. Not a darn thing.
Nope, and I think that going forward in a good spot in the program. I think they're in a good spot. What do you got coming up? Gridiron Wrap, 7:05 tonight.
Yeah, so much stuff going on. Obviously, we'll talk about the bowl games. We have to talk about the Antonio Brown situation today, and a pretty big anniversary in Lion history coming up on Wednesday. I bet you can guess what that was.
Oh, I can't wait to hear about it. Sean Baligian and Gridiron Wrap coming up next here. Don't go anywhere. The Meantime Sports Wrap back next weekend. Have yourself a nice week back. Happy New Year to you as well, Shawnee. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, friend.
Talk to you then. See you later.
Hey, folks, Darren McCarty, 4-time Stanley Cup champion.